Fam, what's going on? In this video, I want to share with you one idea that if you begin to implement today, will start to move you towards your goals and the success that you have mapped out for yourself. But first, I want to talk about this idea of faith, right? We talk about walking by faith, not by sight. We talk about having faith in spirit and God. And at the end of the day, I don't think that the walk is as easy as we make it seem. Yes, there's an element to it in which we rest, right? We can only have faith if we're coming from a place of peace. That peace is a prerequisite for having true faith. But the issue comes in because we don't know what to do to access that peace. I've actually recorded a few videos here recently talking about that very thing, talking about accessing the Christ in you, right? That place of stillness. That's where we need to come from if we're going to truly walk this faith walk. Because there's something that occurs once we actually get on our path. Once we actually begin to walk in the lane that our souls were assigned before we got to this life. If we don't get in line, right? We'll spend our life just kind of meandering. We'll spend our time searching for a thing when it's really there right in front of us. But here's why we don't see it. We don't see it because we're too attached to what we have. We're too attached to our own ideas. We're too attached to the way that we believe things need to be. That's what we need to let go of. We must let go of our ideas of how things should be. We have to let go of how we believe things need to unfold in order for us to move forward, right? Say if you want to start a business, but you have this 9-to-5 job. Maybe you have 2 jobs. Maybe you have a big family. You can't stop working in order to support them. But you also don't see where you have time in order to, build a side hustle, to build a side business or anything like that. If you would make the time, right? Because you're not going to find it, right? You might have 2 jobs, a job where you're working, 12, 16-hour days. And again, you got kids, they got school, they got homework, they got this, they have that. When you look at your life, there is no time there for you to do anything else. I get it. I hear you. And don't you recognize that you're a creator? And as a creator, you have the option to either believe life as it's been reported. I have this job, I have these kids, I have these responsibilities, right? That's the report. Or you can create it. Where you can say, oh yeah, I have this going on and I'm going to do this over here. It's all up to you. But you have to be willing to let go of the idea of the limitations. So by believing that, right? By believing that there are these limitations, you're not going to step out. The reason you won't step out is because you're worried about what will happen if you do, or what won't get done if you begin to take time away from these other things in your life. But it must be done if you're going to move forward. If we were going to move forward in life toward our goals, toward the success that we desire, then we must let go of our own self-limiting beliefs and creations. And there's a story in the Bible that I woke up with that I was thinking about. Actually, I was in meditation and the Spirit said to me, I have a ram in the bush for you, but you got to do this, that, and the third. And I was like, bet, right? And here's where that illustration comes from. There's a story in Genesis about Abraham when God told him to sacrifice his son. Now, mind you, this was the son that God had promised him. Abraham was like over 100 years old. He had this boy. God said, hey, sacrifice your boy to me. And Abraham didn't ask the Bible doesn't record that Abraham asked any questions. He didn't talk back. He didn't question God. He was just like, all right, cool. And so his son, and their guys, when they start up this mountain, and Abraham, he has the wood, he has all this stuff, but he has no sacrifice. And it's interesting because on the way up, Isaac looked at him and was like, Dad, I see the wood, I see the fire, but where's the lamb? And Abraham's like, God's going to provide for himself a lamb, right? They get up to the mountain, build the altar. Abraham done tied his boy up, laid him out. Again, doesn't record that he was talking back or was scared or anything. I mean, I'm sure he was. But he gets to this place where he's, moments away from sacrificing his son before an angel calls us and say, hey, don't touch him. And Abraham looks and there's a ram caught in the bush nearby. And what this story is representative of is the provision, that spirit, that God, that the universe makes for us when we're walking in alignment with it. But that's the key. We must be aligned, right? And it's so interesting because Isaac was Abraham's son of promise. It was literally the son that God gave him. And so for God to want to then take him back is, as a father, I look at him like, bruh, it ain't going down like that. You feel me? But Abraham knew. And this is what gets to me, right? Abraham knew. He even told Isaac, he's like, God's going to provide for himself a lamb. And yet and still, he went through with everything as if he was going to sacrifice Isaac. And what that says to me is, when we're moving toward those things that we desire, we have to be all in on it, right? We can't fake it. It can't be something that we say, oh, I'm going to do this partly, or I'm going to kind of do it one way, but I'm going to keep some back for myself, or I'm not going to give my all. That's not how anything gets done, right? You can't kind of quit your job. You can't kind of stop taking medications and change the way you eat if you have medical conditions or something happening, right? If you want to be in a relationship, you can't only half kind of go out and look for people. I mean, I haven't dated in a long time, so I don't know what's happening out there in these streets these days. Good luck to you all. But yeah, man, Abraham was all in, although he knew that God was going to make a way somehow. He didn't know how, though. He just knew that God was going to come through. And my question for you is, can you move forward in that same kind of knowing? That although your schedule seems packed, that as you move toward it, God's going to open it up, right? Maybe your boss will reduce your hours and give you a slight pay raise. Just for the moment, right? You may not want to be there at that particular work, but I've seen it in my own life where things begin to shift around you in such a way that everything works out for you. I tell people all the time, we never see the entire picture. Right now, we only see what we can see where we are, but there's so much more life happening out beyond it. Even if it's just in consciousness, right? Spirit is aware and spirit knows. And so it orchestrates life in such a way that all of our lives meld together and nothing bumps into anything else. But it literally works in this cohesive fashion so that in you getting what you want and what you need, somebody else is also supported and supplied in this grand circle of life. Shout out to Lion King. So the idea I'm really getting to is about sacrifice, right? If we're going to sacrifice anything, it takes faith to know that God is going to replace or supply or increase what we feel like we have to give up. And even on that note, sacrificing isn't giving up something that you want, right? That's I want to say fatalistic, way of looking at it, but it's kind of dreary. I can't really think of the word right now. It's kind of dreary, right? You have to give up something that you want in order to get something better. The way I like to think about sacrifice is that you give up a lesser thing, right? You give up a lesser thing for a higher thing, right? It'd be like passing over, burgers and fries from McDonald's for real food, like real steak and eggs and fruit and vegetables and all that, right? You're giving up a lesser thing for a greater thing. You're giving up the Netflix to pick up a book, all right? You're giving up going out for a night to study for your business, to study for your class. When we trade these lesser things that we're into for the higher things we desire, God always shows up for us in one way or another. And when you think about the story of Abraham, Abraham desired to please God more than he wanted his son. How do we know that? Because when the angel called out to him and said, hey, Abraham, don't kill him. Now I know you fear the Lord. That's what it said. And so Abraham's higher desire was to please God. So he's like, hey, if I got to give up this boy, I got to give up this boy. It is what it is. But I want what I want. And when we approach our life with that same type of energy, like, hey, I want what I want, then it doesn't matter if it's, late nights with our friends, eating out, not budgeting, right? Just kind of letting our money do whatever it wants to do. We will willingly give those things up in order to get our lives in order when we desire those higher things. So recognize that where you're going is so much better than where you are. And where you are may still be a great place. I mean, the now moment is always fire. So just remember that. Remember that in order to get to where you want to be, something's going to have to go. You have to release a lesser thing in order to grab onto something higher, right? You can't climb a mountain, or you can't, go rock climbing by holding on to the places at the bottom. You got to let go and reach higher. That's the only way we elevate. Let's get it.